The fifth round of the Premier League is behind us, and it's time to review every single game of this game week. Starting off with the Merseyside derby, where Liverpool managed to close out a 2-1 win at home against Everton. Really quite impressive performance from Liverpool here, even though some people would argue they should create a bit more than zero point 0.9 XG at home to such a bad team as Everton can be at times. But I think this is quite impressive just going by the fact that they played Atletico Madrid earlier in the week in a very tight game that they won in basically the last second. And then to come back on the early game, the 12:30 kickoff on the Saturday, and close out a 2-1 derby win, I think is quite strong, especially considering Everton are quite a tough and defensive side at times. And even though their own game isn't that impressive, in my opinion, I think it's really impressive from Liverpool to break that down. So solid win from Liverpool, making them 5-for-5 in their first 5 games of the season. Really something extraordinary going on there. I mean, we expected them to be good, judging by their transfer window, but this is really, really special. Not too bad of a result from Everton. I think when you create zero point 0.7 XG and score a goal, you have to be pretty satisfied. And to lose away to Liverpool by 1 goal isn't too bad either. Moving on, we have Brighton against Tottenham, a game that I told you to keep an extra eye out on because we knew that there was gonna be a lot of goals. And as you see, a 2-2 draw. In my opinion, Brighton were the better team, having control of the game a lot more than Spurs did. But also, that's the playing style of Brighton, and in some regards, it's the playing style of Spurs and Thomas Frank to let the other team control the game a bit and go on the counter. So I don't think either team will be too disappointed by the result. I mean, it was quite an open game and one that both teams could have won, obviously. But I mean, if you're a Brighton fan, you would wish a bit more from your team here, scoring 2 quite early goals and then just doing nothing in the second half at home. That's not quite what you expect from such a good team. But a plus for Spurs, obviously, coming back into the game. When I watched this at halftime, I really thought Brighton were going to walk over Spurs. But fair play to Tottenham. They managed to get a draw. And an all in all, really entertaining match. Next up, we have good old Ange Postecoglou and his Nottingham Forest that just keeps on struggling. When he scored this real early goal against Burnley, I thought, okay, this is it. Now he's gonna really show that his side is quite good for the league and that it can really put a stamp on teams like Burnley. But no, neither did I know that that was it for Nottingham Forest, and he managed to get a draw away at Burnley. Not that entertaining of a game. If you watch this instead of watching the Brighton game on Saturday, I feel sorry for you because you should have known when coming into a game where Burnley play Nottingham Forest at home that it wasn't going to be too entertaining. And as you see on the stats as well here, not too bad. Pretty good display from Forest, but you can't be happy with a draw away at Burnley. That's one of the 3 pointers of the league for them on beforehand. So, and just with the players as well. I mean, having Chris Wood, Gibbs White, and Doye, Douglas Luiz, it's so much better than what Burnley have to offer. So, credit to Burnley, as I've said a lot this season so far. They've really went to war and they've fought very well for every single point that they've got, and actually looked like they have a pretty decent chance at maybe staying up this season. But Ange Postecoglou, I mean, he's really new, so we have to give him some time. But it really does look the same as usual. Speaking of poor managers, we move over to London, where Crystal Palace managed to close out a 2-1 win away against West Ham United at London Stadium. And the biggest question for me here is, how is Graham Potter still in the job? That is really beyond me. I'm actually quite a big fan of Graham Potter, at least I was before, but he's a project manager, and the thing about the project is that it should be getting better. Even when he was at Brighton, we built up that amazing Brighton side. It wasn't good at first, but step by step, you could see his philosophy and how it evolved. And if anything, at West Ham, it seems to be the opposite. So I think they should sack him. The sooner the better. He has to get more out of these players like Bowen, Paquetá, Wood Prowse. It's a good team, but they just aren't playing to their potential. Giving the credit, obviously, to Crystal Palace. Good performance in a derby to create that many chances. Obviously, good for them to see that Wharton is back, having a huge impact in this game. And the credit to Palace, of course, having a really good display away at West Ham United. And the last 3 o'clock kickoff on Saturday was Wolves taking on Leeds at home. And a really, really impressive win from Leeds. Not many people saw this one coming. Of course, Wolves taking the lead early out, but Leeds scoring 3 goals in basically 15 minutes here is quite something to watch. I mean, Leeds, especially, not known for their away record. If anything, it's at Ellen Road that they're the best. And especially in the Premier League, they haven't been that good at scoring goals. Pretty decent defensively at times, but scoring 3 goals away for Leeds, that's unheard of, even though it's against Wolves. So really exciting. I actually really appreciate to see a performance like this from Leeds. I hope that the newly promoted sides can manage to claw their way and actually stay in the league for the Leeds this season. And for Wolves, this is a real crisis moment. This was one of the games that they, before the season, have to have counted on to get a 3 pointer. But quite impressive from Leeds. If they can manage to get a few more results like this, they can actually stay up the season. Up next, we have a game that I didn't predict correctly at all. It's Manchester United, who got their second win of the season at home against Chelsea. A lot of that comes down to Robert Sanchez's horrific challenge on Brian Mbuemo in the first half, in the first 5 minutes, actually. I mean, just completely ridiculous from a goalkeeper at that level to go for that kind of challenge. But it was redeemed by Casemiro, who got his second yellow at the end of the first half. So making it a bit more even, but not even enough for Chelsea to come back into this game completely. And Manchester United took all of the 3 points, shutting up some of those Amorim haters for at least a week. But of course, there's going to be a lot of pressure on Ruben Amorim still, because he has to do a bit better in most people's eyes. And speaking of doing a lot better, I mean, Chelsea, of course, it's hard to say when you have such an early red card, but zero point 0.4 XG against this Manchester United side is not really something to be proud of, but maybe it's just an off day. I did find it strange here if we look at the substitutions. To Sure, he took off Neto and Estevao after the red card. I mean, fair enough. You have to change things up. Maybe it's not enough to just substitute one player. You want to have the goalkeeper and then change formation. That's kind of regular that we see coaches do that. But to then take out Cole Palmer, who we saw show some emotion for the first time of his life, probably. I mean, that's really, really strange. I haven't seen anyone who can explain that substitution, not even Enzo Maresca himself. And as we saw, Cole Palmer was really frustrated in a moment and didn't understand the decision either. That can be the thing that cost Chelsea this entire game, actually. But all in all, Manchester United taking their second win of the season in a game that they will be very happy with. And our final game of this Saturday was the derby between Fulham and Brentford, where I predicted a draw, which of course was incorrect. And if I'm going to be honest, I would have leaned slightly Brentford in this game. But a really impressive performance from Fulham here, closing out a 3-1 win. I mean, to smash Brentford 3-1 is really something to behold. And Fulham, their approach has been interesting, as we've covered previously. The fact that they almost didn't sign anyone this summer, but they also managed to keep every one of their significant players. So interesting strategy, one that I think you have to respect. And Marco Silva's team here look really, really decent actually, and I wouldn't surprised if they could make the top half this season. Moving on to the Sunday games then, and as you know, I recommended that you watched Brighton between Spurs, and that was a really entertaining game. Um, I also recommended that you watched Bournemouth against Newcastle, and I have to apologize for that because this was such a poor game from both sides, I think. Sure, some people would argue it's a managerial good game, I suppose, but if I'm gonna be honest, I don't care about that. I don't watch the Serie A. I watch the Premier League because I want some action, and this was everything else than action packed. I mean, sure, both teams are gonna be happy with the point in this game, but they have so much more to give, both Newcastle and Bournemouth. So I'm really a bit disappointed, and I'm not going to give credit to either one of the teams here. I expected a lot more. If you picked the other early game on the Sunday, you would have gotten a bit more action, but still not very much. Where Sunderland took on Aston Villa and got a 1-1 draw. Of course, that's quite a good result here for them, considering they got a red card on Renildo in the first half an hour there. But Aston Villa, I mean, what's going on? I know that Sunderland at home are a really decent side, but considering how good Aston Villa have been in recent years, I really expect a lot more from them. And Unai Emery, in my opinion, is an outstanding coach, but he hasn't really been backed enough this season. I mean, bringing in players like Jadon Sancho and Victor Lindelof, sure, they might be his call, but it's just not good enough in this Premier League season. And I actually think that Sunderland signings are a lot better, actually. And that's strange to say when Aston Villa have a lot more budget than Sunderland. But all in all, a good performance from Sunderland. Not so good from Aston Villa. I mean, if it continues on like this, I don't know if Unai Emery will be the coach much longer, just because of how high potential Aston Villa have. But maybe it's just an off season, remains to be seen. But they had a bit of an off season last season as well. But yeah, impressive from Sunderland, has to be said. One man down, getting a 1-1 draw at home at the Stadium of Light. And lastly, the final game of the entire game week, and what I thought would be one of the games of the season, but it didn't get close to that standard at all. Manchester City, we have to give some props to, because they were the only team on the pitch who tried to play a bit of football. Scoring, of course, an early goal there, and having a few good chances away at Emirates. But this, I'm lost for words, to be honest. This good aside with Mikel Arteta here, and playing four centre backs and three defensive midfielders in a home game in the Premier League when you're one of the title favourites, I mean, it's just beyond me how he thinks. I've seen him cutting a lot of flack on social media, and for all the right reasons. Mikel Arteta, shame on you. How can you not be able to play better football with all these players? Oh yeah, because you play seven defenders basically, and two quite mediocre wingers, and poor Victor Gyökeres in the middle there, getting no service whatsoever. I mean, the fact that Martinelli got that goal in the end, of course, it was amazing to lob Donnarumma. That's incredible, but it wasn't deserved whatsoever. And if Arsenal want to be anywhere near the Premier League title this season, things have to improve and improve massively. So all in all, I thought that this was a really exciting game week for the Premier League. Obviously, Liverpool, shout out to them, taking home the win in the Merseyside derby, a classic between Brighton and Spurs. Good performance by Burnley. Uh, Good performance as well by Crystal Palace, sack Graham Potter now. The most impressive performance of the game week, in my opinion, is Leeds. In the next game, Manchester United taking out Chelsea. Not many people expected it. I certainly didn't. Important win as well for Fulham in the derby against Brentford. Bournemouth Newcastle, one of the worst games I've ever seen of football. Again, sorry for recommending you to watch that one. Sunderland Villa, strong from Sunderland to get a point, even though they were one man down, and Aston Villa have to do a lot better in those kind of fixtures. And as I covered most recently here, props to Manchester City for playing a bit of football, and embarrassing from Mikel Arteta. So that's it for this game week, and I hope to catch you guys for the preview for game week 6 on Thursday.